Let's talk about the new steering yoke a little bit more, probably because that seems to be the focal point of every discussion on the Model S and X refresh, and I have a lot of thoughts on it, probably a lot you disagree with, okay, so prepare yourselves. Bit of a Tesla fanboy here. I've criticized them in the past, and it's funny in the YouTube space, if you say something good about Tesla, you're a fanboy, if you say something bad, you're a Tesla hater. I've been called both within the same video, which is interesting, so hopefully we can come down to the middle and just realize we all have preferences. We all have personal opinions. And also, I would love to test drive the new Model S or X as soon as it's available and record that, make a video about it. But currently, no one's been able to do it just yet, though I think it's safe to say we all have different driving preferences. I mean, we all use steering wheels in different ways or make our U-turns or make our tight turns in different orientations, and it's natural for people to be resistant to change. And I think Tesla has been a great example of this. There have been lots of things they've introduced or brought to market that people thought that's too far, you're going way too much in the autonomous direction, or you're going way off from what I'm used to, or way off from tradition with automobiles, and because of that, we're hesitant, we're not gonna buy into it. And that's kind of what Tesla was all founded on, right? I mean, electric vehicles first coming to market, people were like, electric cars, don't think this is gonna work out. I think the range is gonna be too low, and I don't know if people can get used to having to charge, and supercharging takes longer than a gas station. That's too much change. And more recently, of course, we've had things like the Cybertruck. That doesn't look like a regular pickup truck. Is that even legal? I don't think that's legal. Also, why are the sides of the bed so high? This will never work. And people were very, very split on the Cybertruck when it was first unveiled, right? But as time goes on, people get used to things, people get adjusted to the new times, and eventually it starts to become the standard, and then before you know it, Cybertruck's ruining everyday pickup trucks for you, or other things Tesla has done, like the center display on the Model 3 and Y. You don't hear about it much anymore, because those vehicles are so popular and so many people have them every day, but I recall very, very clearly when the Model 3 first came out, people were very hesitant to the idea of having everything, even the speedometer, on that one centered display. People saying it was going to be dangerous, or, oh, my eyes are used to going behind the steering wheel, that's what I'm used to looking at. Now I gotta look over to the side, that's weird, that's different, I can never get used to that. But as time goes on, we start to eventually get used to it. And I guess all of those times in the past, I bring up, not because they're exactly the same as this example, I bring them up because they're proof that when people are first introduced to something different, it's natural to resist, it's natural to say, I don't like it, I'm not used to that, and therefore it's bad, when Tesla has a pretty reputable track record with being able to figure out what people want before they know they want it, and be able to figure out, actually, when you try it and you start using it on a daily basis, you get comfortable with it, and you might even end up preferring it in the future. And Elon has even alluded to this on Twitter, saying that once you start driving a vehicle that can automatically switch between like drive and reverse, you start to get kind of annoyed with the process of having to push down on a gear stock for going in reverse and drive. And I somewhat believe him here. I don't believe Elon Musk on everything, but I do believe the idea that once you start getting used to vehicles having autonomous features or doing things for you, whether it be one pedal driving, something that I also recall a lot of people having negative thoughts on when they first rolled it out, to eventually everybody just kind of accepting it as a standard, I think we might see a fairly similar response with the steering yoke design on the Model S and X. It's different, it's weird, it's not what people are used to, and a lot of people are like, I hold the steering wheel up here, I want to grab it this way, or when I do a U-turn or whatnot, I want to be able to grab the wheel in any orientation. And I also think there's a legitimate learning curve here, because similar to how like when I was back in high school and I was taking tests with a driving instructor, sometimes I would make a turn a certain way and they would be like, oh, you're too close to this other lane because if there was a car there, you would have hit that car, or when you're backing out of this space, you cut it too hard because if there was a car there, you would scratch that car. And I would always be thinking in the back of my head, well, if there was a car there, I wouldn't have run into it, but because there wasn't a car there, I didn't mind going into that lane a little bit. I feel like that same type of argument could apply here, as people saying, you know, I want to grab the steering wheel from up here. Yeah, but if it's not there at all, I don't think you're going to be reaching for that part of the steering wheel. It might be a little bit of a learning curve at first, but I think overall, the way we turn steering wheels or the way we have to pivot around corners and stuff, you're gonna grab what's naturally there. And it might take a little bit of getting used to, but in time, I don't really see any functional loss by not being able to grab the top of the wheel, because once you start turning, the new top of the wheel is still at the bottom there. And of course, Tesla is also designing this wheel to be more optimized for an autonomous future, as they expect the full self-driving beta to roll out to more people this year, meaning the car is going to be making more of the turns for you. And some of the reasons I love the steering yoke is, for one, I don't have to look through a steering wheel to see the driver display itself. I always thought that was kind of clunky in traditional cars anyway, having to look like under this part of the wheel to see my speed and whatnot, and now the driving visualizations, especially on highway driving, which is where most of us spend extended periods of time on the road. That's when the steering wheel is mostly flat and level, and now you won't have to be looking through something or ducking your eyes beneath it or obstructing it in a certain way. I'm a guy who enjoys minimalism. You know, my favorite interior is still the Cybertruck to this day, but just because of how simple and clean it looks. And I understand personal preference is a thing. I'm not trying to say in today's video you will all agree with me by the end. I know that many of you just don't like the look, don't like the design, and would prefer a completely enclosed wheel. And who knows, maybe in time, if Tesla receives enough backlash for this, they'll have it be an optional thing at checkout. I mean, there's already a picture of the new Model X on the website that appears to have the older steering wheel, but still has a protruding screen in the back, which means that it is the updated interior, but it had a different steering wheel. Plus, the plaid Model S they were testing at the Nürburgring had a full wheel as well. So there might be options down the road, and I'm also glad that Tesla is experimenting with this new steering yoke design on their lowest volume vehicles. The S and the X are not very popular compared to the 3 and the Y, so they can learn from them, figure out what works, what doesn't work, and make that better for both the Cybertruck, the Roadster, and maybe in the future the 3 and Y as well. But some of the very, very personal reasons I'm a big fan of this design, if you're wondering like, Drew, you're just a fanboy, there's nothing functional about this design. Well, for me personally, I am normally driving around with my wife, and I like holding my wife's hand, and she likes holding mine. And the most annoying part about driving while I'm holding my wife's hand is having to reach over to the right side of the steering wheel and click the blinker left or right, oftentimes when I'm doing, you know, one-handed driving. So typically I have to let go of her hand and grab the wheel in order to do that, whereas this, I can hold the steering wheel with my left hand and signal left and right when I need to, meaning that I don't have to let go of my wife's hand, I can signal just with one thumb, and I can steer the car as much as I need to with just one hand. Also, the windshield wiper button being an icon on the steering wheel seems like it would be a whole lot easier than having to interact with the display every time to adjust windshield wiper settings. Same with the high beam button on this side as well. And also, right in between the horn and the windshield wiper button, there is a little cruise control / autopilot button. I'm not sure of the user input on this exactly. Maybe like holding it activates autopilot, or just tapping it activates cruise control. I don't know, maybe it's a setting you can change, but I much prefer the idea of just tapping once with my thumb to activate autopilot instead of having to reach my fingers to the back and pulling down and whatnot. So I definitely think we should reserve judgment on the steering yoke entirely until we try it out ourselves. There's a lot of things Tesla has come up with, whether it be like the car key feature of being able to walk up to the car and then it unlocks, or just get in the car and as soon as you put your foot on the brake pedal, it's ready to go. And similar to now, the car being able to contextually tell when you want to go backwards and when you want to go forwards. There will be a handful of circumstances in which actually the car is wrong and you need to correct it on the screen, but I think the vast majority of circumstances that you need to go in reverse or drive for, the car is going to be able to detect for you, and that means it's just something else you don't have to think about. Might not work perfectly at first, but I think in a large number of circumstances, a car should be able to detect, okay, he doesn't want to go forward, or he's done backing up. Every time I picture myself backing up or going forward in my car, normally it's because there's an object in front of me and an opening behind me, and I think that a computer could absolutely figure out for a large number of circumstances, okay, he's done backing up, okay, he can go forward now. Again, learning curves at the end of the day. There is a transitional process of I'm not used to it and I'm not comfortable with that just yet, but I'm very curious to see long-term people who buy the new S and X, how they feel about it. And of course, as soon as they allow test drives, I would love to do one myself. Then I'll tell you if I think it sucks. But personally, just paying attention to how I drive my vehicle these days, I'm almost never grabbing the top piece of the steering wheel. And I always kind of felt like it didn't need to be there in the first place. I'm typically grabbing the bottom or the sides whenever I'm driving. Even when I do a hard turn, I typically find myself grabbing, if the steering wheel was a clock, like 3 and 9 o'clock. And if I need to really, really do a hard turn, I'll keep my hand at 6. But very rarely do I just keep my hand stuck at 11 and 1, which is why I guess the steering yoke doesn't throw me off as much. But you guys might have different preferences, and to each their own. You know, that's fine. I understand there's different circumstances and different driving styles, and for those of you who don't like this, I do genuinely hope Tesla provides it as an option. I'm not against that. I got no problem with options if Tesla wants to offer both, but I just figured since so many thoughts are going around the internet right now about the Yoke, I needed to throw in my personal preferences and throw in why exactly I'm cool with it and why I would love to try it out myself. And personally, I would rather have this on any vehicle I drive, but I know a lot of you probably don't agree. Feel free to disagree with me or tell me why I suck in the comments below. Just remember, we're humans. We have different preferences and tastes. You might have a different favorite color than I do too, but that doesn't make you or me wrong. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.